in a scene, to be alive, you have to be open to everything going wrong and then playing. And I never wanted to be mechanical. That was always the thing where I was like, this is not working for me. Some actors are incredibly technical. I don't think I'm technical. I think I understand it, but I try to be free in that sense. And not necessarily goes right all the time.
Right.
But I'm willing to risk it.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Bobby Naderi is an actor. He sat down with me on the Upper West Side of Manhattan to talk about the work.
Do you have a typical way that you like to begin your preparation process when you get a new character?
Well, I think my nutty brain, when I read for it, I start. And then I just deal with the tragedy of not getting it. But I think for me is once I connect with it, once they send me sides, I read the script, I'm already, imagination is running wild of like, oh, you know, where can I go with this? And initially it's just reading it over and over again. And then you just start building the process of something that always connected to me was, it's an Orson Welles line of like, everything's in you. You don't have to go outside it's more of chipping, you know, it's sculpting. It's not, and I found that so useful for me because I was like, okay, if I'm doing something so distant from me, and I've gotten a chance to play a few roles that is very far from me. One of the first things I did was a film called Talk Wars, and it was about Muslim punk rockers based on a book. I didn't know anything about Islam. I didn't know anything about punk rock. And I was playing, you know, like this really sweet, innocent young man who comes into this wild world. And I had been playing basketball, getting in trouble. I wasn't a bad kid, but I was around wild stuff early on. So I was like, all right, you gotta go find it inside because if I'm trying, it's gonna be hacky and campy if I'm trying to play a caricature.
Right.
That would be my first initial thing. And I think it goes all the way to the end. And it's a common thing actors say is like, once you're done with it is when you're like, oh, yeah, I got it. I figured it out. Can I? No, that's it. You know, I think that's the beauty of it, you know, whether it's on stage or on film, television. Once you wrap is like when you have this understanding, you know?
Yes. How did you get involved in this endeavor to begin with? Were you always thinking about acting?
No.
As a young person?
No, my early childhood was wild. I was born in Tehran during the Iran-Iraq War. To say it politically correctly, wasn't a big, we had to get the fuck out of there. And so it was me and my mom, and we got to Turkey, and then Canada gave us asylum. So until 11.
How old were you?
So from birth to 6, and then Turkey for 2 years. You write letters to every country.
Wow.
Places you want to go, and then it's different. Refugee now is way more intense.
Yeah.
There, you're in a house with like 20 people, and everyone has the same dream of getting to safety.
Yeah.
And Canada finally accepted us after 2 years. We go there, and then my mom remarried, so ended up moving down to the States. But to backtrack, she was an artist. She's an incredible artist. You know, she was writing children's books, painter, phenomenal painter, just a creator. And then because of the revolution and the war and all that stuff, everything kind of got backburner to get to safety. And she never pushed art on me. I don't think it was by choice. I think it was just life circumstances. And then I got into playing ball, and I was like, I'm going to the NBA. It was something that I could focus on because I had all that rage from my childhood. And basketball really helped hone that because it was so difficult. I wasn't 6'6", athletic. And I played all the way to college, and then I realized, I'm not gonna go pro. And then kind of by accident, again, she never influenced it. She would give me like books, She would create moments where I'm exposed to art, but it was like, just do what you love,
Yeah.
whatever that is, and supported me. I was very fortunate.
Do you think she tried to keep art away from you because she wanted you to go into other things?
Oh, dude, I just got goosebumps. She said something to me once where I said, hey, how come you don't paint anymore? She goes, it's too painful. And that broke me. And wow, yeah, that's a great observation. Yeah, I think maybe because of her love for creativity and that being taken away, especially as a woman in a country that oppresses women, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a way to protect me, and then I ended up finding my way to creativity. And
what do you make of that? Do you think that that's hereditary?
Having the artistic,
Yes.
yeah.
In other words, if
100%.
she kept it away from you, you would get to it anyway.
In this life or the next, somehow. Or if I'm, let's say I'm a physician or I'm a carpenter, I have this deep love for art.
Yeah.
And I see it in people. I'm like, that person has artistic just sense. Because like, you know, you watch a film with 5 people and 2 people are just blown away by it. And then the other 3 are like, oh yeah, it was fun. And you're like, oh, they're not hearing the music, you know? So I 100%, like, it's in your DNA. I think it goes back.
So it's interesting because when I was 20, around the time that you left around was the time when I was introduced to Iranian cinema through Abbas Kiarostami, Jafar Panahi. Changed my life. Because that stuff, it wasn't like an influence in a traditional way. I was thinking about stuff like that. And then I didn't know the movies like that were made. But then I fell in love with the Iranian people because of that, especially kids. So here you are, a little 11-year-old in 95, right? When I saw that movie and and falling in love with these kids.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? And then, did you even know about like Iranian cinema?
No.
Not at all,
It
right?
was survival. It was like complete, like, I don't want to go too in depth in it, but it was completely survival mode. And I didn't discover Iranian cinema until like getting into film properly and going to Sundance, and then like, what's independent film? And then, you know, a director took me to watch a Michael Haneke film, and then I was like, oh, what the fuck is this? And then that's like hearing, I remember this quote of, I think Scorsese, I don't know if this is real, but he was like, cinema starts with Kurosawa, ends with Kiarostami. I was like, okay, who's Kiarostami? And I'm watching Taste of Cherry close up, and I'm like, what is this? And Taste of Cherry, to go on a side tangent, I lost my mind once in a class. I was auditing the class and I wanted to do a scene from it. And the teacher was like, I don't know what this is. I was like, I know. He's trying to convince people to like, and she didn't get it. She's like, I'm sorry. It was like, you know, to not throw her under the bus. She just didn't understand, because I was like, you have to see the scenes. Like they're like, you can't do this on stage. I was like, why not?
I love
She's like, and then she was like, you're a nut. I was like, I know, but like, let's do it. Anything, you know? And
I love
so
that.
I didn't go back.
I love that. But see that, so it's interesting that kind of stuff, even from other countries, right? That kind of art cinema was attractive to you at this time, right? It was doing something to you, and I mean, even when you were trying to, you know, do some acting, you were influenced by that kind of stuff, huh?
Yeah, that's the stuff that I think made me continue, even though I was doing these little Sundance movies, no money, no one saw them. You know, someone would be like, oh, I saw, you know, this film. And I'd be like, what? You saw this? Like how? Or you were at the festival. But yeah, it had a huge influence. And for my early 20s to like later 20s, I was completely a film snob, and I was an art. Like I was like, I would tell agents, I'd be like, I just want to do cinema. I don't want to do your stupid TV show. I would be so, and I was like, that kid was so, but around like 27, I was like, no, I also want to make a living so that I can survive. Because I was burning the candle on both ends.
Yeah, sure.
And I was like, people have to see them. And can you do this in a sense where you're making great art, but everyone can also see them?
Yes.
And finding that balance and then swimming between the two worlds.
Yes.
That was always been a goal of mine.
When you see your work, you have the subtlety to your acting that I respond to because I love that kind of stuff that I'm not seeing in Hollywood. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I that's what I'm striving for. I remember one time I went to an audition, and I don't even think it was a real movie. Like, it was early on. Again, I don't think it ever got made. I don't know, but the director was like, oh, just kind of stopped me in the scene. Was like, I see what you're doing. To this day, it haunts me. I'm like, I don't even know what happened in that room for him to say this. But I was like, whatever he thought I was doing, I have to try to. That's so strange. And he said, you're under the skin acting. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And he's like, you're, I think it's what you're talking about. And I think that came from life experience early on, just seeing, a lot. It was like a darkness to me in a sense, because I had to become a man. And now I have I think I'm just a big silly person, but I have that side to me. So I think kind of flipped usually when you're a kid. And my mom really protected that, but it was also like, she was blunt with me, like, this is what's happening right now, and then I still do have terrible problem with authority. And I think that is another part of that kind of acting of like, in Iranian cinema, it's all underneath, like a volcano, right? Exactly. Like you see Mahmoud Baf and these directors. I was talking about his Panay's son, Hit the Road. Yeah, Hit the Road. And the everything is just like, and you're waiting for that explosion. I just love that because I thought it was effective. I was like, you want to give people goosebumps. You want to really move their. I want that.
But it sounds like this is something you can't really dive too much into or analyze too much, right? If you start doing that,
it becomes mechanical.
And we won't do that on this show, because I want Bobby Naderi to keep working and keep doing what he's doing.
I'll be in that cult in BC.
Yeah, exactly. But it's serious. It's almost like you have to just cultivate it in whatever way you're doing it, and keep it in that petri dish, and just keep doing what you're doing to activate it. But do you do this even in auditions? Like, is that or did you get to a certain point, like around that time that guy said that, where you're like, all right, I have something here, and I need to keep kind of showing this, because this might be my superpower.
Yeah, I think there was a moment where I was like, this is narcissistic of me, in the sense that like, I respect this so much. And I remember being in the headspace of like, I want to be like Terrence Malick, who never does an interview. There's no photos. And I was like, and I looked at myself in the mirror. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, you imbecile? Like, that's so silly. That's that person. I love that filmmaker. But this idea, again, it was all rebelling, right? And I was like, no, you can do your version of it, you know? And I love actors, I love filmmakers, I love people. I was an only child, huge imagination. So to me, all this is the circus, and I get to join this family, this tribe of people. So I was like, nah, that's not me. And I think that shifted. And around that time, I started working in more different playgrounds, and more people saw stuff. But I think it was a symptom of just really, like you said, getting too heady about things. And it was a dangerous road, and I quickly turned. Luckily, I was young, because imagine if I would have done that for 20, 30 years.
Yeah, right.
I would have been miserable at the end.
Right. What did you get out of somebody like Judith Weston?
Okay. Judith was so important to me. So that director I told you that took me to see Michael Haneke, he said, hey, come to this workshop. And I go, and it's Judith Weston. And then I realized, like, her book is being taught everywhere. She's incredible, brilliant, brilliant person. And it's not an acting class. It's literally, you go, you get set up with a director, and you do scenes. So it was emulating what it would be like to book a job and you show up to set. And not one note ever about acting. It was about making scenes work, making life work. And I learned so much, because for me it was perfect, because it was not like, here's the guru teacher telling you what's interesting. It was like, make the scene work. You know, this idea of like taking that work seriously and not, for me, it didn't work. I don't want to like shit on people that have teachers. For me, that was the person who I was consistently with. And I tried, like I told you, Taste of Cherry, and they were like, what are you talking about? But in that class, I could do that because it was just about, and she's worked with phenomenal directors. And she's retired now. I think she works privately a bit, but I owe a lot to the environment she created, and I got to experience that.
And that was the main thing you got out of there, the environment, or was there things that she was mentoring you on by herself? I guess you're saying she wasn't really teaching in the traditional way.
She didn't really teach acting.
Yeah.
She created an environment where you were building yourself as a creator, whether you're a director, writer, an actor.
Yeah.
And I love that, because it was harder, and you didn't have any. A fear of mine was having tricks and stuff that you would attain through your career, and you just kind of lean on that. Here, it's like, no, this is the scene. How do we make it work? Two human beings, obstacle, make it work, figure it out. Right. And I like that kind of tough love, in a sense.
And you know, when I hear that story, I'm just thinking, okay, this is about you meeting somebody, them saying, hey, come to this, you saying yes. And then your life changing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what actors have to kind of do, right? They kind of have to say yes to things, put themselves in environments that they may not be used to, and then something special like this might happen.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure that led to other things from there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's just like people who are very kind of protective and want to say no to things because they judge it too fast or something like that. I think that they stunt their growth.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
100%.
It's like you have to almost just follow. It's not even following, it's just saying yes.
Yeah. Well, just being open, because it could have been, and that specific situation, it was, I didn't know I was going to a class.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, there's a workshop. I just showed you this incredible film. And in that screening, Alejandro Iñárritu goes, this is what taught me. And I was like, what's going on here? And then I watch his work. And then he's like, come to this class where all these directors are. And I'm like, okay. And then I go and I'm exposed to filmmaking as a whole.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is my gang.
Yes.
I fuck with this.
Were you starting to get an idea of what works best for you? In like what environments work best for you?
Were you starting to put this together at this time?
Maybe subconsciously. I was very lucky to work with some great directors throughout, and they were all different, but the directors I connected with were more create the environment and had an idea of where it is and let you kind of get to it. I've never worked with a director that was like a bully, in the sense that like, this is how it's supposed to be. Because I think, my personal opinion is that's also dangerous, because then you're not, like you said, open to something magical happening in a scene. Or I like people in general that are aware that, you know, the doorman coming in might say something that triggers something for you to find something, you know, like, so I think I just subconsciously were working with those kind of directors, and everyone to this day I've worked with has that, you know, different degrees, and learning to how can I serve this, like my character is here and I need to serve this story, never being bigger than the story.
Right. What do you consider a big break that you had that kind of moved you to another tier?
Biggest break, I would say, was Bright with David Ayer. because I love that dude. He's a great filmmaker, and I think between him and Mary Verneau, who's a casting director, are the most important, aside from my family, in the industry, like very important to, like I said, around 26, 27, kind of going over that change. And he instilled a confidence in me. I had one scene in that film, a long scene, it was a very fun scene where I got to go toe to toe with Mr. Will Smith, and the confidence we'd never worked together. I auditioned and I got it. That changed everything for me.
How did he do that? What did he do?
So when we were doing the scene, in the writing, I'm kind of going at his character. So I play like a kind of the police of the police in the scene. But there was a point where he's like talking to me as we're shooting, and he's just rip into him. And that's it. And then I just kind of started improvising. He would throw some stuff at me, and we went. And you're kind of in that place where like, and this was the biggest thing I'd done.
Yeah.
I came from doing little films, and the way it came out, and we've worked together numerous times after that, it just gave me this internal confidence that, all right, it was so important. It was so important that I got that opportunity, and you need that,
Yes.
It's that. And I have another one, which is kind of funny. There was a guy who would make self-tapes in LA named Joseph Kell. He's such an amazing character. Always seemed grumpy. Sometimes like he hates everything I tape. And one day, for no reason, and it was like a rough patch, I wasn't working. He goes, and he was mean. He could be mean. like you could see it, and he'd be like, oh, like that kind of energy. And he just turned to me and goes, "Don't stop, don't quit," and that's it. I never got that part, whatever. But I did but what he said was like,
yeah,
because
he's an honest guy.
I hope
pull punches.
Yeah, and that, I don't know if he'll ever hear this, but I don't think I've ever told him. I don't think he remembers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just we were in a Burbank garage doing tapes for some pilot. But he said, "Don't quit." And I was like, huh. I'm about to quit. I'm like, okay. Yeah, that, and, my backbone and heart is my mom. She's been such an incredible, powerful influence.
So once you headed down this road, your mom was like fully on board with this?
She's a nut. Like if I have a little bit of, if I have a little, like if I have 10% talent, that woman's at 100. And again, this woman said, "Yeah, you'll go to the NBA." Bullshitting me, but believes it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I believe we should do that for people.
Yeah.
If I meet a young actor, I'm like, and I see something in there, I want to gasoline that fire.
Yeah.
I get hyped thinking about it.
Yeah.
And people have done that for me.
Yeah.
Great actors I've worked with in, smaller things would say something, do something subtle.
Yeah.
That just, it's tough. It's a tough business.
Yes.
Creativity, any kind of art, life. Fuck it, life. And you get that little nudge,
yes,
means a lot.
And then it goes, and then it's still feeding you.
Oh yeah.
That's the thing. And like that guy in that garage doesn't realize that he gave you fuel.
Yeah. I don't know. That one comment, it really fueled me as
You
well.
gotta make a documentary about this guy, because this guy's this cantankerous Burbank garage. What is this, like early 2000s?
No, I think it's still going too. I remember, I love this dude. He's such an amazing person. One time, the first time I auditioned, it was a rough part. My buddy was auditioning, and I had an audition to play Robin Hood on a whatever TV show. Or the villain in it, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. And I go in there, and it's set up garage, and my buddy does his tape, and I'm like, I don't want to do mine. I was so angry because I was frustrated, time of my life. I was like, I don't want to do it. And my buddy was a wonderful actor, James Hairbear, James Landry Hairbear, he was one of those three name guys. He goes, "No, just do it. Come on, we have 5 minutes." I was like, all right. And I was just, when you're like on a high, because I was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I did the scene and I watched Joe. He's sitting down, recording. And he didn't know me, and he probably thought he told me after that, he thought I was an insane person. He goes, he was like this, just chilling, the audience getting it, but he was leaning back in his chair, bored.
Yeah.
And then as soon as we started doing it, he just went, okay, all right, he's going for something. And even that gave me confidence.
Yeah.
Didn't get it, but
Yeah.
it was,
Get somebody to
those
step up a little bit, sit
Yeah.
up in their chair.
risking something and being, going for something.
Yeah.
And it was cool. It was cool. Again, like you said, I don't know if he knows he's had that effect, but that's.
But I think this is also a story that people need to hear about how you don't know how you affect other actors in how you were receiving or not receiving something they're doing.
Yeah.
And, I think the important thing here also is that he did not bullshit you. Okay? Mm-mm. If he bullshitted you, you wouldn't be affected by him when he sat up in his chair.
Yeah.
And I think people need to hear that.
Yeah.
But then you have to realize, though, you can affect somebody forever.
Yeah.
And keep affecting them based on how you are responding.
With no immediate results.
Right.
Again, this is like years and years of auditioning.
Right.
I wish I could tally how many times you tape or go in the room.
Yes.
It's crazy. And every actor has this story. But those are the ones that build you.
Yes.
Like that, it's a cliche, but it's literally that.
Yes.
It's just etching it out. Like,
yes. Yes. How did the Beekeeper come about? Like, this is a giant movie.
Beekeeper came about David Ayer. So I did his TV show after Bright. It was called Deputy. Mm-hmm. And did a couple episodes on that. And then I just get a call. You want to know the backstory of the Beekeeper?
Yeah.
Again, life is a character. It's like a comedian. The universe is a comedian. At that time, I had no reps. I had just left all of my US reps. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I ended up in Mexico City with my ex-partner. She was shooting a film there. I was like, I don't know. We'll just see what happens. And then I'm in the Dominican Republic and I get a call. And I'm like, what? And, they just offered it to me. And I was like, what? Again, like, everything was wrong. I was like, this might be it. Because, you have that feeling of like, this could be the last thing.
Yeah.
And it's like what you said, you don't know how you affect people. And the timeliness of it.
Yeah.
To the point where I remember at my Canadian rep at the time, they're like, they're going to think you set this up. I was like, no, I didn't know anything. It came out of nowhere.
Yeah, wow. And then you do such great work in there. And it's comedy. Yeah. You're able to have little comedic moments. And it feels like it's so subtle and so, the character's so alive. In a movie where, I don't know, I don't see a lot of these kind of action movies. Everybody knows this. I that listens to this show. So, but I'm pretty certain that people don't get to do a lot of this kind of subtle comedy work in these kind of movies. How did that happen? Like, is that in the script? Were you given a little bit of longitude there, a little bit of like room to like do a little bit of magic?
So Kurt wrote the script and it was there, but Wiley wasn't like flushed out. Mm-hmm. So when I spoke with David, we talked about that a bit. And then when we got to set, we started rehearsing. And in the rehearsals, David's like, we were doing the scenes with Emmy and was like, this is funny. And I was like, and then to flash back to Bright, he would let me go. Mm-hmm. And
he knew if he let you go.
And then he would throw stuff. And we worked so well together and we were just fine. And there would be times where me and him were just laughing. Everyone else looking at it like, what is wrong with these two? And we're so like, if you meet us and like next to each other, we're so different, But I think we share the childhood and he had a really rough childhood as well. yeah, we just make each other laugh, and he would feed me stuff. I would come up with stuff. And so a lot of it was improv, a lot of it was scripted. And yeah, it was so fun. I didn't know how that film would turn out. I didn't know people would respond to it. Again, that's not a movie that I'm like, you know, Taste of Cherry, you know, Hit the Road,
Yes.
you know.
You're with me.
Yeah, so, and for that, I was like, okay, how can I find this to come alive from the page with Bobby playing this character, you know, inside out kind of.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a lot of fun to make.
That's amazing. And you know, the first time I saw you, I'm embarrassed to say, was when I was sent stuff for this series that's about to come out.
Unbelievable. I'll never
Call.
forgive you.
The Better Sister. And there I am watching you and seeing you again. I say again because I had to go back then, and then I saw the Beekeeper, and I'm like, oh, he's on to something here with this kind of comedy. You're so confident in this new show. You're so subtle and confident. You're alive. This character's alive, and it makes, you know. And again, it's funny in this way where I'm like, I don't know. You don't see scenes like this a lot in things now. They don't give actors enough space to do this kind of subtle stuff. You're again a detective. You're again but you're doing subtle comedy again in this way. And there's little moments where I'm like, oh my God, you're pulling off this kind of stuff where I bet you people are going to just like rewind for a second and be like, wait, let me see that again. Again, how were you able to do that in this show?
Amazing writers, producers, our showrunners, Olivia Milch and Regina Corrado were so, you know, the writing was so strong, but they would also give me freedoms to play inside the scenes.
That's it. Why?
And
why though? Why?
I don't know. I think I'm just lucky to have those kind of, they're amazing.
Did they know that you can do that?
Well, Craig Gillespie directed the pilot, and he was involved, I think, coming on board to do the episode 1, and he's incredible from his comedy.
Yes.
And I think if I kind of like go outside in, I think what I always tried to do was to be open, because I failed so many times planning a scene out.
Yeah.
I realized you cannot do that. It's so dumb. The idea that in a scene, to be alive, you have to be open to everything going wrong and then playing. Mm-hmm. And I never wanted to be mechanical. That was always the thing where I was like, this is not working for me. Some actors are incredibly technical. Mm-hmm. I don't think I'm technical. I think I understand it, but I try to be free in that sense. And not necessarily goes right all the time.
Right.
But I'm willing to risk it.
Right. Took a lot of years of failure of planning.
Many years. Yeah.
To be
years
like that.
To go, this is how the scene should be, which is, my opinion, such bullshit.
Yeah.
How the fuck do we know this interview is going to go?
Right.
A deer could run into me. Inside joke.
That's an inside joke. There was a deer on the street in New York here. So it's true though.
Yeah,
who knew we'd be walking by a deer in New York City? We just don't know.
We just don't know.
But the important thing there is that you learned from your failures. Learned from trying to be prepared in a way that wasn't working because you weren't alive. And then the result is I'm sitting there seeing somebody alive in a way that, you know, not a lot of actors get to be alive in the way you're alive.
Thank you.
And I'm just saying this, I'm just putting a pin on this to say, like, that came about from failure.
Yeah.
And learning.
Yeah.
And so we should consider our failures blessings to learn from, because what's going to happen is a cantankerous jackass like me is going to sit there one day and see somebody alive and they're standing out in a way that actors, I think, have a hard time doing that in this line of work right now. And then people are responding to it, and then they're putting you in other things, right? Because of the work you're doing. But the other people in the scene, how do you work that in, your scene partner, in the way you're talking about? Because they have a different process that's different from yours.
To do like a pre to that, and then I'll answer that. The other reason was failure, and a bigger failure was because my mom was an artist, she would watch all these tapes, watch all my work, and she was so brutally honest, where I would get mad at her. I'm like, you don't know the script. She's like, you're not alive, what you're seeing. You're not connecting your eyes to the camera. And I'm like, you don't know movies. You're a painter. How do you know? You know? And
But did you know deep inside that she was right?
No, I was, because I was so hurt. I was so hurt because you know, your parents are supposed to be like, my kid's the best ever.
Yes.
And she's like, no, it's not good enough. You're not alive. You're hiding from the camera. That was a no. She would, and I would resent that because I was like, you don't know cinema, blah, 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 blah. And then I started listening and being open to it, and she kept doing it. So now it was building that trust and understanding. So that was another reason. So it's failures, and then biggest failure, the person you worship telling you it's not good, dude.
Yes.
I don't care what the casting director told you, if even things I got.
Yeah.
There was a project I got that did really well, and she was like, you weren't good in it. She's like, I could see you acting.
I love this.
And she's a purist, right? She's a real artist. So she'd be like, you need to go with your soul. I don't want technical. I want to see something different. Everyone can do this. What, you know, so there was that.
Wait, I have to ask this, and I'm scared to.
No, go ahead.
She loves you now, your work now.
It changed. Thank you. Yeah. Now
Because
she's like,
that's it. You landed
it broke
on it.
through. It broke through, and I look back, and I did do that, and I was planning, and I wanted to do what I thought was good, which was incorrect.
Yes.
And then, what was the second part of the question?
Well, with the people you're working with.
Oh,
how important is that?
So again, failure. Failure is the theme of this. So many times I would get really bad situations where someone is just trying to one-up me.
Right.
Or we're completely technical actor and I'm more of like, let's see, let's explore, let's build this thing, set it on fire, and let's go play.
Yeah.
That's how I liked it. But then I realized I can't force that on someone. Right. So then I started learning, hopefully, I don't know if I can, if I'm in that situation, how can I use that to my advantage of like more pressure, more obstruction, which now feeds me. In the past, I'd be like frustrated, like, oh, why is this person doing this? This is like, now I'm like, okay, how can I use this? You know, which made a game within a game of like, oh, I see what you're doing. You're trying to like get the attention in the scene. I always hated, and I'll stand by this, I hate when actors are like, you gotta go and kill the other actor. Yeah. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yes.
No one in real life goes into something and goes,
that's right.
I want to do that. They're just being human beings with emotions and passions.
Right.
And I've heard big actors say this, and I resent that. I'm like, that's nonsense. You know, I'm not doing that with you. What are we playing? This isn't basketball.
Right.
This is
trying to win the
you're
scene.
You're not winning anything, you know, like winning the scene. And this is probably blasphemy, but like, that's absurd.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
It's music, dude.
Right. We're playing it together.
I'm not shouting over you.
Right.
And no one wants to see that because then they'll see the bullshit.
Right.
Sorry, I got too
But these are people that work.
Yeah. Yeah, but I could see it.
Yeah.
And when I see the work, I'm out. As a, you know, as they say, you play a butcher and a butcher watches it, they'll know.
Yep.
And actors, that's why I think actors getting the approval of other artists and directors and actors is a high thing, because when I see it, I'm like, oh no, you gotta hide it better, man. I could see it. I could see the choices. I could see it's predictable. I tune out completely.
Do you think about things like this? You are a character actor in the best sense of the word, but you have leading man looks. Is what I just said, does that make you want to fucking puke?
But
I'm serious though. Like, do you think about it like that? Because I think I always want to say to people, like, if you have leading man looks, go down the road of being a character actor. Like,
You just had mustache in this, you know what I mean? Like, it's a small thing, but it's like, that's what a character actor does. They change their look up.
Yeah.
if they go down the road of the character actor, and there's nothing wrong with this road. There's nothing disparaging about that word. I think it's the greatest thing an actor could do is be a character actor. There's nothing pejorative about it. But when you have a certain look that unfortunately is the way people expect leading men to look, I feel like you are taking the right road now toward actual in-depth work that could be leading man stuff. I mean, is there a certain point where you're like, I need to now be the leading man in things. Let's look for this.
First of all, what you said, I'm embarrassed, and it's the highest compliment to me, because I love character actors. I've spoken about this. John Cazale, like, people like Michael Jeter, I believe, is like that. I remember being blown away by, he would pop in and I'm just like, what was going, that is an entire universe. Sometimes way more exciting what's going on here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I've always wanted that and connected to that. I remember a manager early on in my career was like, it's not going to work. They're not going to put you in this because of what you just said. Like, you need to look this way for this to roll, or they're going to go to this star. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, well, I can't change that,
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to do leading man stuff that has a lot of character, because I love, that's so fun. It's just fun.
I want you to come back on the show. There's no saying no. I'm demanding this. Okay? Bobby Naderi, thank you so much.
Dude, you're incredible. I will come back over and over until you kick me out.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.